Hey guys, today I'm going to be painting the Assassin Charlotte from the Eternal War campaign by Limbo Miniatures. As you can see, I received a prototype resin miniature. This is not the resin one you would get. This is the game size one. If you actually ordered a resin version of her on the Kickstarter, she will be much larger, about 110 centimeters. This one's about 60-ish, 70-ish, I think, all the way up top. Anyway, my building skills aside, I think the paint job goes quite well, so let's get right into it. Okay, so first things first, I suck at building this. I struggled a lot. If you actually watched the video of me building her, I struggled with the resin and then just building it. I'm just unprepared. I don't have the tools I should have. In fact, even filling this up, as you can see with this liquid green stuff, not really meant for big gaps like this, because it'll shrink because it is, you know, wet. It's not the normal kind that you like mix together, it just comes straight out of the pot there. So I have to go about 2 passes over this, and it's still not perfect. Obviously, if you spent good money on the big resin version and actually had to build her, you would probably have the correct tools of the trade and probably just be better at it than me. I'm pretty average when it comes to this stuff anyway. So anyway, we'll fill this up and then we'll get to painting. Alright, so as always I prime in gray, but I'm actually going to do a few spurts of white kind of from the top. Not really from any specific angle, just kind of a top-down general lighting scheme there. I don't know what that gives me, but I did it anyway. Mechanicus Standard Gray is what I'm going to do the base coat of the base here for. Now, one of the fantastic things about Eternal War is they have these great miniatures and these cool art kind of drawings, but they're not colored, which means I can color this sucker however I want, which is really fun. It's exciting to pick and choose your own colors. I wanted her because she's going against the forces of hell, and there's going to be this demon, and I've already painted another demon from this miniature line, and so I'm going to paint them the same red color. And so I figured, let's do a blue and red kind of evil and good sort of thing here. So first I'm going to splash some Nuln oil onto this, get into all the crevices. I'm not going to let it pool too much, but in general I'm going to touch this up anyway, so let's just let it sit there. As it dries, we're going to start with black-red. This is the same thing as the Demon Vanguard I painted earlier, so I'm just going to kind of layer up these reds to this is kind of the darkest red, and then we're going to lighten it up more and more, so it shows up pretty good. I don't want it too dark. It shows up pretty bright here, but trust me, when it dries, this black red is pretty dark, so we're gonna lighten it up. You don't have to be too careful. I'm gonna add a lot of blood kind of on the bottom, and you know, it is just a severed head at this point that she killed, so any touch-ups around there aren't gonna be huge. And just be careful, I guess, really around the ribbon and the horns, because those are both going to be light colors based off my color scheme, maybe not yours. And so I don't want this dark red to kind of make that more difficult for me. Next up, now that the Nuln oil is dry, I'm going to get Mechanicus Standard Gray and paint in about 80%. Because these are just stones and they're irregular shaped and they're different, you know, sizes and lengths and angles, you don't have to be exact. Some you can cover up more, some others. It all depends, and I think the kind of randomness adds up a little bit. So honestly, go ahead and move quick here. This just took me a couple minutes. It doesn't take that long. You're just kind of running your brush through there, just bringing that Mechanicus Standard Gray to that base level again so we can highlight it. Now I'm going to move back to Carroburg Crimson, only because now that paint on the demon is dry, I want to put this on so it can dry while I do the next step. Otherwise I'd have to wait or move on to something else. I'm just trying to be kind of time efficient here, so I'm going to slap on this wash and then let it dry. In the meantime, I'm getting the Mechanicus Standard Gray and mixing it with this gray blue. This is about a 60-40 with a little bit less blue than the gray in here, and this is going to do one level of highlight just to kind of, again, I wanted this cobblestone to have this kind of blue theme, right? And I think it would look great with blood on it, right? So it's going to be a little bit blue. So now we're adding a little bit more gray blues. This is not just straight gray blue, but now it's about an 80-20. There's a lot more gray blue in it. And this is a much smaller highlight. Again, you need You can be irregular, it doesn't have to be, you know, super hard, and again, you're just going to throw blood on anywhere. If there's a spot you really don't like, blood splatter, you're done. So anyway, I really liked the kind of the blue tinted cobblestone. It also is kind of maybe a cool color, like maybe it's nighttime or something like that. There's some moon glow. She's an assassin, why not? Next up is going to be the burnt red, and this is going to be the next level highlight. So the wash is now dry, and I'm going to stipple it on the horns, and otherwise just do a basic highlight. Then we're going to follow that up with Cavalry Brown, and this is one of my favorite reds, to be honest. And this one's just an intermediate highlight, and kind of really in the middle of all the highlights I'm going to be doing on this. So it's kind of hidden a little bit, which is too bad because it's a good color. As you can see, I think it's a beautiful red. It's called Cavalry Brown, but it's a red. Cavalry Brown, sorry. And again, I'm doing that stippling. There's some texture on the horns there. And so if you just add some dots there, it looks great. You don't even have to follow the actual texture. You're going to give a sense of it. You remember, you're going to see this from, you know, board distance here. You don't have to be super exact. Next up is Pure Red. This is going to be the final highlight here, and again, we're just going to put this on as minimal as possible, and really where the chin is jutting out, and the top of the head, and the horns, just where there's the most light. And again, you're going to cover a lot of this up with blood. Screaming Skull is going to be the color for all of the horns and the teeth, so pretty much all the bones in this miniature. This is what I do for most skulls too. I just do Screaming Skull, Agrax Earthshade, Screaming Skull again, but the Screaming Skull's really watered down, and it waters down super easy too, so it does a highlight quite well. In fact, if you really don't like it, it's not watered down enough, you can water down a whole lot and pretty much use it as a glaze, blend them both together. I actually do a little bit of that off screen in some spots where I felt the highlight was too drastic, but this is a lighter color. If you get a little bit on the ribbon or the cloth there, it's okay. Be careful with the teeth. Again, I'm going to have blood running down his face, so I don't have to be super exact here, but this is a great miniature, so take your time. As I said, Agrax Earthshade, again, I'm just going to throw this on there, it'll darken it up. If you wanted to, you could keep it here, but it kind of makes it a little dull looking, and I'd want some highlight in the bone, especially on those really big horns, and then the side horn has some texture to it as well I want to bring out. So, we get the Screaming Skull back in. As you can see, it's a pretty drastic highlight in a few spots, like right here where I'm starting. I do much better, as you can see, on the teeth. So where I don't like that, I'm just going to put a kind of a glaze. Again, I did it off camera real quick. I just wasn't quite happy with it. But it ends up, again, really well. And especially where those horns upturn, be sure to highlight that so you can really see that curvature of them. Now with this Agrax Earthshade, I'm going to come back and just kind of add a little bit of darkness to where it's first coming out and let it pool around where it meets his skin, really drawing kind of more attention to that, almost like it's being folded in. Next up is white. This is just a base coat for the eyes. I make the eyes on the demon, at least the demon Vanguard, and so in this one too, kind of glowing yellow. And so if you put white and then the yellow on top of it, it'll go really good, much better than on top of the red. So Flash Glitz yellow's out. Again, we're just going to kind of quickly cover one shade through. It'll have a little bit of this white. It won't be a solid. It'll have a little bit of the white behind it, and that, I think it looks really good. Instantly adds that kind of glowing effect for you. You don't have to be too careful. Then just where kind of the pupils are, I'm doing a little bit of Dorn yellow just to kind of differentiate it, give them a little bit of a pop. Now, this is going to be a long time with the basic skin tone. She has a lot of skin showing, and so it's going to take some time, especially because she has these ribbons like on her side, and then like her kind of halter, whatever torso piece she has. It's just like a band on the side, so you have to like get like the sides of her too, and then inside the rings here, and just you know, kind of take your time. I tried to, in this video, show you kind of the points you might want to make sure you realize are skin and not something else. And then just generally showing you, be careful. Again, you're going to be painting blue on top of this if you follow my scheme. So it's not terrible, but this is such intricate work anyway. Take your time. And again, this is, you know, a good, you know, 30% of the model is just this color. So it'll look at it afterwards, but just base coat for now. Alright, so I put some Armageddon Dust on there. This was something, again, I added kind of after the fact. I was looking at it, I was like, I want a little bit of texture, but I don't want to add like a bush or something. So a little bit of dirt, and then throw some Agrax Earthshade on there. Let it pool kind of around it, be a little sloppy. So you'll see me kind of let it go in the recess and all that. It'll just kind of add to the kind of the little bits of dirt there, like it's been kicked in or something like that. Next, we're going to do the flesh wash. This is watered down flesh wash, so it's about 50% water, 50% flesh wash. You could do a Lamy medium and do this proper. I just use water straight from the tap. Actually, it's from my paint bucket or my paint cup that isn't even super clean. I do fine, but again, I'm just doing an average job anyway, right? This is just to kind of create that shadow, and as you can see, like on the side of her chest and kind of underneath the armpit there and all that, it's very subtle. Even when I'm dabbing it, because it's watered down, it's actually going to dry even less than what you're seeing now. So very little, just a hint of it. I'm going to actually kind of try and highlight up versus add shadow, because when you add shadow like this, especially to skin, it can oftentimes look dirty, and I don't want her to look dirty at all. You know, she's obviously not concerned with being dirty, but you know, she is standing on that sword kind of up above everything. I just think it'll give it a cleaner look. So again, anywhere where the shadow would be, again, I'm just generally doing a top down. I'm not trying to do you know, the lights at like a 90-degree angle to the left or anything like that. Speaking of highlights, again, I added a little bit of white now to the basic skin tone. I'm just adding some highlights. So again, the top of her chest obviously would have a whole lot. Her upturned leg. It helps add definition to her face as well. So I did a little bit of like a cheekbone and chin work there, kind of her upturned fingers, and where her arm is bent, kind of the top of her bottom. So you really get that highlight to shade that you saw me add before. And then go ahead with one more highlight. That's what I'm going to do, and this is even less. This is just on the most upturned parts, so her chest and her leg, her shoulder, again with like the nose, that'll be important, and then kind of you know, the very top of her bottom there, just to kind of and her arm bent backwards and stuff like that, just really trying to make those bits pop even more. Next up is Viking blue. This is the base blue. Now I'm going to do a lot of work on this blue, make it look kind of nice. Again, very detailed work. Good point on your brush. Smaller brush because you don't want a huge belly that'll, you know, knock into the arm there, in between the arm, you know, and the side of her chest piece there. You want to be able to control where the paint goes very carefully here, because at this point the skin's done, and it would be unfortunate to have to try and touch that up with blue on it. It's gonna be rough. This part here, by the way, really hard to get into, especially right in between the legs on the very bottom. I don't quite show that because I had to get really close to make sure I didn't get too much blue on there. Got a little bit, had to clean it up, but not too bad. Now for the cloth that's draping down here, you're going to see I'm just tracing around what I've already painted, so then I can get a bigger brush and paint the rest. I don't want to paint all of it in a big brush, but so now see, big brush, I'm going to paint the rest now that I've kind of traced around it. Just make your life a little bit easier here. And again, speed it up a little bit. Be smart with what brushes you use. You don't have to just use one brush the whole time, unless that's all you got. And then I forgot the armbands. I went back to get the armbands there. Drakenhof Nightshade. I have no idea if I say that right. It's the blue wash from Citadel. It's fantastic. I think it's a beautiful blue. It's not too dark, believe it or not. It looks dark on this light blue, but you know, I'm used to like Drushi or Drusi Violet, the purple one they have, which is really dark. So this isn't actually too bad. It's a good color blue. That being said, with so much area you need to cover, you're gonna have to work quick. And I mean quick. So I'm speeding really quick. In fact, it was blurry in a lot of the videos, so I cut some of it out. But you don't want it to leave tide marks. You don't want it to dry until you're done. Next up is Viking Blue. This is the Viking Blue back again to establish the base colors, just as we do with most highlights after we do a wash. Then we're going to go to Lothern Blue. So I'm not adding white to these blues. Instead, I'm picking different blues. I'll have 3 different blues. Next is the Lothern Blue. I'm getting all the stitching work on her chest piece, all the different details there to really pop it out. And then doing these kind of swooping cloth fabric, you know, swooshes, and as straight and as long of a line as I can. Then we're moving on to Voidshield Blue. This is the final highlight. Again, tiny brush, good point on it, and then you're essentially just edge highlighting everything at this point. See, just right there on the edge, in the center of all those big swooshes, you're going to add them there too on the cloth, and it just really make it look really, really nice. This is a really cool styled mini with these draping cloths, very cinematic and stylized, so we're going to want to make that stand out. Next up is Shining Silver. I wanted her blades to be bright. I didn't want really any darkness at all in the blades. A lot of times I do darker blades, especially with like Rising Sun sometimes, depending on the concept art that would allow me to. Here I wanted it, again, to be a pretty bright miniature, except for this dark black demon head that she's killed. So, really bright color here. Then I'm going to add white to it, so I'm not going to darken it all, I'm just going to highlight. And I'm doing kind of the non-metallic thing. I don't know, the professionals do it this way. I don't understand how light works. Apparently you do like half of it on the top and then half of it on the bottom. I don't know if it's refracting or I don't know. Other people smarter than me do it, so I'm going to do it too. Why not mimic those that are better than us? So anyway, top, bottom, and then just kind of, you know, where I think it would normally go, which is just the top of it, plain and simple. So painted the rings, the swords, and her bracelets in that color. Next up is Weapon Bronze. This is a fun color. I really like a lot of the Army Painter metallics, and this one is no exception here. These are going to be on the guards, and it's going to be on her necklace chain. And that's really it. There's not a whole lot to it. I'm going to highlight with Averland Sunset. Averland Sunset is... I never cease to find uses for Averland Sunset. It's a great highlight to this. If you thin it down enough, it's still going to be metallic. Looks great, looks good. And then you just mix a tiny bit of it in, it'll keep that metallic. Violet I chose for the blindfold to really kind of make it pop and kind of stay in the blue theme, but also be, you know, it fits with the red too. And I think purple is the perfect accent color for this miniature. So I'm going to actually bring it to these hilts as well, all 3 hilts. I think I'm only going to show you the 2 here, but I do the hilt and the other one as well, the one she's standing on. Then I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, and that's going to be the highlight, and it's going to be as simple as that. Again, very small work on that face, and be careful, because you don't want to mess it up too much. For the hilts, I'm just doing, on the side, I'm just doing dots, and then the one on the bottom, I'm doing slashes. We're almost done. Abaddon Black is going to be the base coat for the boots and the hair. I thought, you know, she is an assassin after all. These boots are really big. I thought about maybe making them violet, but I thought that'd be too much, too gaudy. And with the black hair, I felt the black boots, so kind of top and bottom, really frame her against just the miniature as a whole. This is just my thinking here. I don't know if it makes sense to you or not, but this is kind of why I picked the colors I did. So she's going to have black hair, which I thought fit with her personality as being an assassin and all that. And again, it's going to really pop with how bright the rest of the miniature is. And it's on the top with the dark red demon on the bottom. It kind of just, I don't know, to me it encapsulates kind of the whole thing here. Then we're going to move to black gray. This is going to be highlighting the boot itself. Black gray is awesome, and I highly recommend if you have a black and you want to highlight black, go buy Vallejo's black gray. It is awesome. It's great. It's the darkest gray I have seen, and it is perfect for adding highlights to black. They look fantastic from pretty much any distance. Really, really good. I like it. And then you can then highlight off of it. So for like the top of the hair, just where a lot of the light would go, and some of the curls, I'm going to add uniform gray. So just kind of really define it, especially around her face. That way it kind of frames her face, I think, a bit more and a bit nicer. Evil Sun Scarlet for 1 drop. 1 tiny bit for that little gemstone right there on her necklace. I think it looks great. Now, again, I want these to look good, these bases. They look great, and I almost feel bad covering up some of these cobblestones, but I figured let's add a few leaves to it. So I kind of placed them where I wanted them, and then put a pool of super glue on some cardboard, and then would dip them in instead of I wanted them in specific spots. I wanted a little bit more control. You could just put glue on it and then pour the leaves on it if you wanted, but you might just get some junk little bits in there too. Now, for a tiny bit of violet, and thanks to my wife for this idea, I didn't know really what to do with these laces here, but a little bit of violet with a little bit of white, that same kind of highlight, and you add in those laces, it gives it kind of a goth look, but I really dig it. I think it looks really cool and ties it all together. And we're just about done here, so let's varnish and add some blood for the blood god. The reason you want to varnish first with the matte varnish is the matte varnish will make it just look like it's painted red. It won't look like blood. It'll ruin that effect at all. It'll look like paint. And so you want to add the blood afterwards. I've never had a problem with this chipping off. It dries really hard, and it's going to stick where you put it. So I'm putting a little bit on the leaves, like a little bit of splatter, some on the textured there. I'm letting it kind of drain out and really just surrounding the head, and then having it drain in kind of different spots. And then the sword, I'm going to have it trickle down in between his eyes, through his like mouth and down his chin. Now, I have some Tester's Gloss Coat brush on, which is what I'm using here. This is just for the metal pieces. Again, I want these to kind of still be a little bit shiny, and then very carefully on that necklace. That's it, guys. Look, this is the miniature. This is the Assassin Charlotte from Eternal War, from Limbo Miniatures. The Kickstarter, I think, did really well. I was excited for, especially for a first-time game. Looks like an exciting skirmish game. I still have Gouge the Butcher, so if you want to see that painted, let me know in the comments before. Shout about it, and I'll know you want it. Otherwise, if you disliked this video, be sure to like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Thanks to all my patrons. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon.